como le decía el día de ayer, nos brindan este gran espacio a la cumbre de
As
decanos y decanas
I was telling
para
you,
poder tener todas las comodidades necesarias, y si es necesario traducción y demás, pero la
again,
idea no
we
es
have
funcionar como un taller, no
translation
como una conferencia
as
y
yesterday, but the
conversar.
idea is to have this work as a
Y,
workshop
y por la
rather
tarde
than
vamos a tener
a
la reunión de la cátedra
conference.
de
And
desarrollo
this
tecnológico y
afternoon,
transferencia
we will
después
have
del
the
almuerzo,
meeting of the
que pienso
Technology
también va a ser
Development
de
and
interés, no
Transfer
solo
Chair,
de los decanos, sino de un interés más
which will
general
be
de quienes aquí
interesting for the
estén.
deans and for everyone present.
Decana. Bueno, somos muy pocos, pero tenemos acá el decano de El Salvador, de
We have
Guatemala, de
deans from
Costa
El
Rica, de
Salvador,
Colombia, de
Guatemala, Costa
Perú,
Rica,
de Honduras.
Peru, Honduras.
Acá vienen mis invitadas del TEC
We
de
also
Monterrey,
have our
que
guests from the Tech University of
tuvimos.
Monterrey.
Adelante, por favor.
Please take a seat.
Ya a esta altura estamos abiertos a decanos y decanas y
We are
futuros decanos y
open
futuras
to
decanas
deans, current deans and
para que
future deans,
participen.
if you would like to join us.
Bueno, la idea de este bloque
Well, the idea
de una hora
of
antes del
this
almuerzo
1 hour
es
panel before lunch
hacer una
is
breve referencia a lo que hemos hecho hasta ahora y
to
hacer unas
very
propuestas de
briefly
avanzar.
touch
La
on
breve
some
referencia, por lo que
proposals
veo quienes están aquí,
on how to move forward.
algunos pueden no conocerla, pero hace
Maybe
varios
you're
años
not
esta parte comenzamos a congregar decanos y
familiar
decanas de ingeniería,
with what we've been
tecnología, ciencias
doing,
aplicadas,
but
directores,
we've
directoras,
been gathering
vicerrectores, vicerrectoras,
deans, rectors,
para ser amplio en la
vice
terminología
rectors,
que tenemos los
directors of
países de
engineering in
América en
order to
general y
include all
Centroamérica
of
y
the
Caribe en
different
particular.
types of positions in our
Y luego
universities
comenzamos a
across the different
encontrarnos
countries of Latin America.
presencialmente en distintos
And then we
países. Y desde el ACSEI lo que hemos hecho es
started to
promover la
gather in different countries,
conformación de
and
consejos
from Lexay, we
nacionales
started to promote
de
the
decanas y
creation
decanos
of
de ingeniería en
national
general.
councils of deans of engineering.
Y lo hemos
And
logrado
we've
en
managed to do
Honduras, en
that
El
in
Salvador, en
Honduras
Costa
and
Rica,
in
en
El
Guatemala.
Salvador, in Costa Rica,
Estamos
Guatemala.
trabajando para que algunos
We
de
are
estos se dinamicen un poco
working
más.
on
Y
streamlining the
estamos trabajando
process a
para
little
sumar
bit
a la
more in
República
some countries,
Dominicana
and we're working on
y también a
incorporating
Panamá.
the Dominican Republic and Panama.
También hemos creado un consejo regional de decanas y decanos de ingeniería que congrega estos consejos nacionales.
So this is the regional
Y se viene
council
trabajando activamente
of
en
engineering,
conferencias, webinars,
and
pero
we've been
queremos dar
working actively in
en
conferences
esta
and
reunión
webinars, but
de
in
hoy
this
algunos saltos
meeting today,
cualitativos,
we'd like to
tanto
make
con
some qualitative
el
leaps
Consejo
forward,
Regional,
both
cuanto
with
con
the
la
regional
cátedra,
council and with the
para
chair,
poder profundizar
in
el
order
trabajo.
to
Y esa es la
strengthen
idea.
our work. That is the idea.
Vamos a recordar los
Let
objetivos
us
generales de
remember
nuestro
the general
Consejo
objectives
Regional, ¿no?
of our regional council.
Facilitar, promover, concretar
Facilitate,
colaboraciones para el avance
promote,
continuo de la educación,
achieve
investigación,
collaborations
práctica,
for the
¿no?
continuous advancement of
En función de las
education,
articulaciones
practice,
desarrolladas, integrando a
based on the
Centroamérica y el Caribe entre
articulations
sí con el
developed,
resto de Latinoamérica.
integrating Central America and the
Y
Caribbean
también
among
nos hemos
themselves
dado
and
otro
with the rest
objetivo
of Latin
general,
America. Another general
que es
objective
compartir
is
fortalezas y
to share
necesidades. Creo que
strengths
esto es
and
fundamental
needs. I think this is
de
essential
las instituciones de
of
ingeniería, de
the
modo de recrear
engineering
acciones de trabajo
institutions in order to
colaborativo,
recreate
enriquecimiento mutuo,
collaborative work
superación de limitaciones
actions for
para su
mutual
desarrollo,
benefit and to
siempre atendiendo a las
overcome
distintas
limitations to
posturas y
development,
realidades contextuales
always
de dichas
considering the
instituciones,
various
tanto públicas
positions
como
and
privadas,
contexts of these
así como a sus
institutions, both
diferentes
public and
modelos de
private,
gestión.
and their different
Tener
management
así siempre
models.
una actitud
So
de
always have
amplia consideración de las
this
distintas situaciones, de las
consideration to
distintas
the different
casas de estudio.
situations and the
Bien,
different
la agenda del día de
institutions.
hoy.
This is the
Lo que
agenda for
queremos hacer es
today.
conformar
What
un
we'd like
comité
to do is to
ejecutivo,
create an executive committee,
porque hasta ahora, tanto la
because
cátedra
so
como el
far both the
consejo
chair and the
estaban
council
dirigidos por una
have
persona,
been led by
en el
a
caso del Consejo
person, in the
Regional,
case of the regional
por la
council,
decana Marilyn
by
Arias,
the
aquí de
Dean
Costa
Marilyn
Rica,
Arias from Costa
y la
Rica,
idea
who is
es
here
que
today.
podamos
And
conformar
the
un
idea
comité
is to
ejecutivo,
create an
que
executive
podamos
board
instalar nuevamente la
to
idea de la necesidad de armar
again
comisiones, ya que los
install
decanos no
this
pueden estar
idea
en
of
todo,
creating
pero tienen
commissions, because the
colaboradores que
deans
pueden
cannot be in
enriquecer
everything, but they can
distintas
have
áreas.
collaborators in different
hablar un
areas,
poco de temas de interés si hay tiempo,
speak also a little about the topics of interest, if we
hablar
have time
de
for that,
los objetivos
speak
de desarrollo
about
sostenible
the
en las instituciones de
Sustainable
educación
Development
superior,
Goals
de
in
la historia de la ingeniería en Centroamérica y el
higher
Caribe y de
education
las posibles
institutions,
sedes en
also the history of engineering
2024-2025.
in Central America
Es
and the
probable que
Caribbean,
muchas de
and
estas
the
ideas
possible
queden
venues for
pendientes para que cada uno de
2024-2025.
ustedes después las
Probably many of
reflexione
these
y
ideas will
también para
be
que, por supuesto, las
undetermined for
podamos
you to reflect on
referir
them and
a quienes
also
hoy no
to
están aquí con
refer them to
nosotros,
those that are not here with us today.
pero que a partir de hoy tengamos el
But
objetivo de
as from
complementar
now, we
esta
should have
agenda.
the objective of meeting this agenda.
Que tenemos la intención de
Our intention
armar una presidencia, una
is to
vicepresidencia y 3
have
secretarías.
a chair,
Yo voy a proponer
an
que la
executive
primera
vice
presidencia la
chair,
tenga
and 3 secretaries.
la
The first
coordinadora
chair
actual,
or
que
president
sea
should be the
Marilyn
current
Arias.
coordinator,
De
Marilyn
modo que
Arias.
tenemos abierta la posibilidad
So
de que se postulen para ser vicepresidentes
you can
o
apply
secretarios.
for
Con la
vice
idea que
presidents
funciona
or
muy bien en muchas
secretaries.
instituciones,
And the
incluyendo
idea
la
that
CEI,
works very
de que
well
esto sea
in many
rotativo.
institutions,
Dentro de
even
un
in
año,
LACSE, to make
la
this
presidencia pasa a ser
rotational. That is 1
presidencia
year
pasada,
from
que se
now,
queda dando su experiencia
the
durante un año, y el vicepresidente
president
asciende y
will
así hay
stay
toda
as
una
the past
movilidad.
president, sharing experience, and
Entonces,
so on and so forth.
a los primeros que les debo
So
preguntar es a los presentes.
the first we should ask are those
Tenemos
that are
4
here
cargos
today.
para
We have
postular:
4 positions
vicepresidencia, una
to
secretaría
apply for.
académica, temas de
The president,
acreditación,
well,
diseño
actually
curricular,
the vice
académica
presidents,
propiamente dicha,
also the
una de
secretariat
extensión y transferencia
of, well, the
y una
academic
de
secretary,
investigación y
the
desarrollo.
outreach and transfer secretary, and the
La
research and
idea es que ahora
development
ya no sea una
secretary.
sola persona,
The idea
sino
is
que sean
not
5
to have
las que
just one person,
dinamicen
but
el Consejo
5
Regional.
people managing this regional council.
¿Hay algún interés en sumarse?
Is anybody interested in applying?
¿Sí?
Okay, here.
Bien.
All right.
Del secretario en la parte académica. Sí, aquí el
For the academic secretariat, okay, Mario Juárez from El Salvador. Yesterday, everybody introduced themselves. I don't know if you were all here yesterday. He is experienced in accreditation of courses. I know that. In your case, outreach and transfer, okay, our colleague from Guatemala, the Mesoamerican University. Have you ever, in your countries, do you have those sellers on buses that say, okay, who wants more? But it's not true. I mean, nobody has bought anything, but they keep saying, anybody else? Okay, here it's the same. The Secretariat of Research, what about that?
Bueno, Melania, si te parece,
okay, Melania, if you agree, we have a president from Costa Rica. Let us move to a secretary from Honduras. Can we take a note of this? But you're all invited to join and collaborate. The idea is we are all very busy. As deans, we should start sharing our workload. So each of the secretaries, okay, we have a vice president then here. Remind us your name. Good morning. I'm Claudia Ayala from the Simón Bolívar University in Barranquilla, Colombia. Welcome. The rest of us know one another, so welcome. So, for the commissions, the academic commission would be, the academic secretary has to create this commission. That's the challenge. How does this work, this creation of the commissions? They should ask the deans that are already part of the regional council to appoint collaborators. They're direct collaborators with experience in academia, professors. Marilina started working. She moved ahead with universities from Costa Rica, but the rest of the countries are still a little behind with this. So this is information that Marilyn can share with each of you. Richard, you should do the same for outreach and transfer, and Marco for research. Something has been done, but we still have to include universities from the other countries. Whatever. No, actually, each commission I mean, if all the universities that are part of the regional council want to have representatives in all the commissions, okay, we'll add them all. But then they have to get down to work. Okay, so we have the executive board then. You're not interested, Dean, so far? You're from Colombia, right?
Sí.
I'm sorry, she's not speaking to the mic.
Sí, está perfecto. Vamos a seguir sumando.
Okay, we'll keep adding more. There's something that then in the plenary today at 5 p.m. I would like to clarify this. We have to give more entity to the Summit of Deans of the Americas, because actually we've been very focused on Central America and the Caribbean, but I will have to revitalize that summit virtually. We cannot wait for a year for a new LACSE meeting. So if everybody agrees, I think it's perfect to have Colombia there. Okay. And we have her there. She will be Central American at any time. I have good and bad habits. Some of them are not so nice. I always put a lot of information in my presentations that I will never read, but you will have them. But this is for this not to be in a vacuum. And by sharing some experience I can have 30 years after the National Commission of Deans of Engineering of Argentina. In Argentina, we have a council with 120 deans, 12 working committees. We have dealt with several topics. So we can share with you what topics we think might be topics of interest. These are some for the Academic Commission, some others. Each of these is would be wonderful to organize each of this. This is very ambitious. It doesn't mean we have to do everything at a time. The same for the Commission on Outreach. An initial mapping of the realities of the various schools that make up the Commission, that's a good work to start working from. But the expectation and the hope also is that in this new year, we can do more than what we did last year. Sustainable development. I will send you this presentation. You will have it. In research, models, cases, projects, participate in the chair mobility of researchers, and this is a gift for the deans, because the deans that will have assistants to work in the commissions will then have nothing to do. But some things are for the deans, and we will not have a commission of deans. That will be for the plenary of the regional council, and these are management issues. And here I'm sharing with you a list that is always incomplete and imperfect. I'm very worried about integration. That is the responsibility of us, leaders, and intra and inter-school integration, and national and international integration, and integration among functions, teachers, research, outreach, a communicational policy, communication systems, all these things that sometimes deans cannot deal with all this because of the everyday reality. So perhaps participating in organizations like this make us think back on those things we really have to deal with, because we have to delegate and create spaces for delegation. There's an empty chair at the back.
Entonces, bueno, ahora acá tengo algo para compartir con ustedes y para que les quede, que es un...
This is something for you to have, this idea of articulation among entities. And I wanted to share with you, I've done this in the past, perhaps it's new for some of you, and I have some news to share with you. As we have LACSE, there are other regional and international organizations that gather engineering. ACIBE is the Ibero-American Organization of Engineering Institutions. But what they do at ACIBE is to gather directors of engineering institutions. So sometime in the future, when the national councils are well developed, or the regional council of Central America and the Caribbean, you can start thinking of saying, well, I want to be a part of ACIBE. That is like a second level organization. But so far, there's a lot of work to do locally and in Central America and the Caribbean. Then IFEES, the International Federation of Engineering Institution Societies. This is a global organization of societies and individuals from engineering from all over the world. For instance, they met in Monterrey last year, and this year in December they will meet in Sydney from the 5 continents. The Global Engineering Deans Council, GEDC, from all over the world as well. These 2 organizations are very connected between them. And the General Secretary of both is the same, Hans Hoyer. He leads them both in parallel. And let me tell you the following. Hans Hoyer is eager for LACSE to share information with him of deans from Latin America and the Caribbean that he can attract to be part of these organizations. So I wanted to ask you, then we will have to do this by email because many are missing today, but we can take a note or somehow, so we can give him your names, your positions, your email addresses to the president of these 2 organizations because they have asked for this. Then, of course, the decision is up to you. So if you agree, we share your information with them. The GDC has a Latin American chapter. Actually, they have a WhatsApp group, but they meet whenever they can in Latin America. The OAS, well, you know what the OAS is about. They are very connected to LACSE. And the new councils today that are added to this group, Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rica, and Guatemala, that have already created their national councils with different levels of action. You must have realized that today we are here in Costa Rica because the council created in Costa Rica became very dynamic very quickly, and they wanted LACSE to be meeting here today.
Aquí hay toda una serie de temas que les van a quedar a ustedes un poco más ricos.
We have a series of topics here that we will be leaving with you, which are a bit more in detail than the ones I just presented. They are a lot, one for the academic commission, some others for the Commission of Extension and Transfer, others for the Commission of Research and Development. But it's interesting because this was the result of a presentation that I did last year, where I gathered the topics of interest to each organization I just mentioned, ACIBE, IFES, GDC, and these should be like a beacon for us. When it comes to technology development, well, the topic should be, defined in order to come up with an agenda that requires us to create separate chapters so as not to tackle everything at once. This is a challenge that we will be leaving for you, the new presidents, new secretaries. There's a lot more topics. When you've been doing this for a long time, you have a huge collection of topics. These are our common goals. This is a general list of what these organizations seek to do, like say ACIB, IFS, GDC Latin America, the OAS, which is a partner of LACSE in many efforts.
Pero bueno, es un objetivo que si nos quedáramos ahí, no podemos operacionalizar nada.
These are goals that are very general and wide encompassing. And a brief reference to some supplementary aspects. I was telling you that ACIB gathers associations of engineering teaching of Ibero-America. It includes the Americas, but also Spain and Portugal. IFIS gathers entities of engineering at a global level. And by entities, I mean not only universities, but also businesses and business chambers. LACSE, well, it gathers institutions of engineering in Latin America and the Caribbean. Then we have the GDC, which gathers deans of engineering at a global level. And actually, I've been a part of ACIB. I was vice president of ACIB. And at the time, I was president of the Deans of Engineering of Argentina, so I was vice president of ACIB. I was also in the board of director of IFIS, president of GDC Latin America, president of LACSE, so I'm very familiar with how the boards of these associations work. GDC Latin America gathers deans from Latin America, and then the OAS. I want you to pay close attention to this section, which is the section for competitiveness, innovation, and technology, which is where we collaborate the most with the OAS. I also wanted to bring you this, and since we have a little bit of time, I will show you. It is, you have the executive committee, you have the working commissions, some topics for the commissions. You have the topics that stem from all the engineering entities in the region and at a global level. But I'm also interested in sharing with you what seem to be the current challenges to engineering in our region and in the world. We were based on the National Academy of Engineering of the United States to create this. We took the challenges of the National Academy of Engineering of the US and we translated that into our Latin American reality. Of course, there were a lot of objectives that didn't fit us, but we added some more. And that is what I wanted to leave with you. Some objectives are confusing and some are beyond our imagination, but the general framework is sustainability, health, security, and joie de vivre as well. So in general, the objectives of engineering in the world is providing sustainable food, water, and energy, protecting against violence, natural disasters and disease, accessing the pleasures of learning, communication, and entertainment. Those are objectives for every single person across the globe. And this here is a list that includes other objectives. For instance, the second one, providing energy based on fusion. Well, that doesn't fit Latin America, right? Because we cannot build fusion reactors here. So that way, we started selecting the objectives that best fit our realities. So reverse engineering the brain, well, that might not be within the realm of possibilities of our engineering institutions, except for medical engineering, which are programs that are offered in some universities. And I want to go over this quickly, because what we did was determine objectives for Latin America. Of course, these are open to improvement, to any contribution that you would like to make. The first objective for Latin America has to do with education. And below each objective, you will find a more specific comment, moving from strategy, from tactics, right? What we can do from universities to tackle these objectives. For instance, in this case, it says transforming itself in order to educate professionals that can transform the world. I don't think universities think enough about transforming themselves. We even assess, teachers and students and our programs. And when we assess the institution as a whole, some things we don't assess, we don't evaluate. We don't assess deans, for instance, or rectors. They won't let us. In some cases, the assessment is not visible. For instance, who assesses the organizational structure? That is something that we take for granted, that we think cannot be changed. But we should do that. We should assess the organizational structure and see what we can do to improve it. If we do not improve our organizational structures, we're not going to be able to improve the processes that allow us to change the world, and we will continue to perpetuate the cycles that already exist. Well, another challenge has to do with urban infrastructure and general infrastructure. And below, we have a paragraph saying what we can do with that. Energy is another objective. Mining. Some countries have mining, some don't. Some types of mining, different types of mining depending on the country. Management and availability of water. This is very current in some countries. Care for the environment, productive processes, analysis for the prevention of risks and catastrophes. Actually, in November of this year, LACSE is collaborating with the Corporation of Deans of Engineering of Chile. They were really interested in LACSE after the multi-conference that we held in Argentina. We already have 3 members and several more are coming. Probably we will actually be holding the multi-conference in Chile next year. And in November, that corporation is organizing an event on disaster prevention, and LACSE is providing specialists for earthquake and hydraulic risks. What else? Space protection, providing food and agro-industrial products. The NAE from the United States doesn't talk about SMEs, for instance, because, in developed countries, the relationship between universities and the private sector is obvious, right? So they don't need to tackle that as a specific objective. We do need to include this as one of our challenges, because we do have it as a challenge. And below the challenge, again, you can see some specific points, some specific actions that we can start to carry out, some proposals as well. And the last challenge, regional integration, especially in regional and global value chain, articulating production and trade with development engines. We have to start looking at the value chain in each of our countries and the global ones, of course, because the global value chains actually affect our own local value chains, because they always seek to optimize their own costs, but sometimes that can impede the development of the value chains in Latin America. Some cross-cutting technologies that we need to consider as part of these objectives. That includes AI, neuroscience, bio-nanotechnologies, robotics, control technologies, and so on.
Se están durmiendo. No se están durmiendo.
Are you falling asleep?
Los estoy vigilando.
No. I'm looking right at you. Don't fall asleep on me. We are all teachers here. Remember,
una vez participé de un curso en que un profesor
once I was taking a course and a teacher started looking very closely at a student. He almost hypnotized him, and the student ended up falling asleep right there. That was pretty funny.
Acá hay todo una presentación.
We have this presentation about SDGs. You might think, well, SDGs are so widely talked about, right? But I'm not just talking about SDGs. I'm talking about tactics applied to universities for the SDGs, because government needs to apply the SDGs, companies as well. But how about universities? Has any of you ever thought about assessing your suppliers to see who takes care of the environment? What do you think? And these are our new students who are not paying attention. They agree here. The coordinator is saying that they agree. Okay, so a specific question. Has any of you in your universities ever thought that you can hire suppliers who take care of the environment? We teach that, but we often don't apply it to our own universities. I will go through this very quickly. This is a presentation on SDGs, but below each SDG, you have specific information about what we can do from universities to apply the SDGs, what we can do so that our students who take our courses, who take our programs on, say, environmental engineering, so that they can see that the university also takes care of the environment. We apologize. He's not speaking into the mic.
Perfecto. Exacto. Seguramente, en cada proceso, cuando uno mira un proceso,
when you look at a process,
bueno,
each process is linked to several SDGs.
Acá cuestiones en general.
Here are some general aspects. Here, sustainable campuses, employment, sustainable food, sustainable markets, food markets. Here, this presentation contains a lot of information. I would delve deeper into this if I had more time, but I don't. But basically, it's about what we can do from, the regional and local councils, from our universities and within our institutions in favor of the SDGs.
Bueno, este es un tema que hemos instalado para el que no lo conoce o todavía no lo veo, que
this is a topic that some of you may not be familiar with, but we have talked about the possibility of Latin America writing its own history of engineering, as every Central American country has done. It's a proposal put forward by ACIBE, and let's say, through myself, has decided to sponsor this initiative, not only in South America, but in all of Ibero-America. It's possible
Porque
that
si
this will
veis,
become
están
an
teniendo unos
isolated
tiempos
project
muy
only in
perentorios.
Central America and the Caribbean
Y bueno, la idea
because
está
of
muy
the
buena,
schedules
pero
that
nosotros vamos
ACIBE
a
is
tener que
setting.
asumirlo con
The
tiempo
idea is
para poder hacer
very
las
good,
cosas.
but
La
we
idea
might
es
not
que en
have
cada
enough
país se
time.
arme algún
The
equipo
idea is that
y
every
se
country
empiece
can put
a ver qué es
together
lo que existe
a team
y poder
to assess what they have
escribir
in
la
terms
historia de la
of their
ingeniería
history
en
and to be able to
América
write the
Central
history of engineering in
y del
Central
Caribe.
America and
Acá
the
lo que dicen estos
Caribbean.
párrafos es que hay mucha riqueza
Here, we
en la historia de la
see some
ingeniería
paragraphs
en
stating that
Centroamérica
there's
y
a
no
lot of
rescatada en
history of
algunos casos,
engineering in
rescatada
Central America
fragmentariamente. Por
that
ejemplo, en
is
esas
very
historias están las
fragmented.
historias de las
And for
universidades,
instance,
cuándo
we
fueron
ask
creadas,
ourselves,
cómo se
does
desarrollaron
that history
sus
include the history
carreras,
of universities,
hasta el día de
how
hoy
they
me
were
parece que tal
developed,
vez no.
how each program was developed? I think
Hay una
they're
hoja
not
de
there.
ruta que habla de buscar
They also
bibliografías,
have a
documentos,
roadmap for
entidades que
finding
tengan
literature and
colegios
documents,
profesionales,
as well as entities,
buscar lo
professional
que existe,
colleges,
antecedentes de la
looking for
ingeniería en cada
what's there,
país, en fin.
historical background of engineering in each country,
Y
and
esto está
things like that.
sistematizado
And
en
this
ciertos periodos de
is
tiempo.
divided into different periods
Para
in
continuar ampliando y
history.
profundizando las
To
acciones y la integración de
continue
las instituciones de
strengthening
educación
and
superior
deepening
de
the
América Latina y
actions
del
and
Caribe,
integration of higher education institutions
si
in
esto
Latin
fuera
America
una
and the
exposición,
Caribbean.
yo diría gracias y
If
ustedes
this was just a
aplaudirían, pero
presentation,
no,
I would
no es
say
una
thank you,
exposición,
and
es un
then you
taller.
would give me a round of applause.
Bien,
But this is not just a presentation, it's
me
a
gustaría
workshop.
escucharlos.
So
Nos
I
quedan
would
10
like
minutos antes del
to
almuerzo.
listen to
Le voy
what
a
you
dar la
have to
palabra a
say.
la
We have 10
presidenta
minutes left,
del
so I will
Consejo
go ahead
Regional.
and give the floor to the president of the
Muchas
Regional
gracias, don
Council.
Miguel. Bueno, buenas tardes. Tal vez un poquito
Thank you.
ahí,
Okay, good afternoon.
como hemos venido trabajando en el
As
Consejo
we've
de
been
Costa Rica y con las
working on at
comisiones,
the Costa Rican
para que
Council
efectivamente
with the
funcionen, arrancamos con la
commissions,
de investigación
we
ahí
started with
donde
the
Melania y su
Research
equipo
Commission,
forman
where
parte.
Melania
Y
and her
es
team
que
are
hagamos
participating.
la
So
construcción,
the
¿verdad?
idea
Como tal del
is
equipo.
to
Hacemos un
create
kick-off
the
con
team,
todos los
have a
que
kickoff with
integramos y
all
a
the
partir de ahí
members,
las comisiones
and then after
comienzan a
that,
trabajar
the
solitas
commissions will
y
start
en el
working
Consejo de
on
Decanos
their own.
vemos esos
And at the Dean's
avances que
Council,
tenemos.
we will
Con
see the
respecto a
progress
lo que
being made.
decía don Miguel
And
del,
about
del
what
libro,
Miguel was saying
perdón,
about
del capítulo a
the
ACB y
chapter,
que podemos construir,
the
pues
ACIBE
nosotros
chapter
ahí
that we can
como parte de
create,
esa comisión de
well, as part
investigación
of
nos
that
organizamos
research
y también
commission, we
visualizamos el incluir otras
organize
áreas, como por
ourselves and
ejemplo,
contemplate
si
the
es que
idea
hacemos
of including
entrevistas a
other
personas que
areas,
son de
whether we
impacto en el
conduct
área de
interviews
ingeniería en el
to
país,
people that have an impact in
incluir a gente de
engineering in the
comunicación,
country,
a que
perhaps
tomen
include people from
fotografías e
communication
ir
so
no
that they
solo
take
construyendo un
pictures,
capítulo, sino
and not
que
just build a
visualicemos
chapter, but
construir un
also
libro de historia para
build
nuestro
a
país y
history
pues que
book
ahí
for
quede
our country
plasmado.
so
Entonces
that
es una
it
bonita
contains all the
dinámica.
information there. So
Nosotros
it's a
como
very nice
ingenieros y
dynamics.
tecnólogos
As engineers and
estamos en todo,
technologists,
¿verdad? Y en
we
todas las
are
áreas
in all the
y ir
details and in all
construyendo
the
esa
areas. So the
multidisciplinaridad
idea
con
is to
nosotros a la
create
cabeza
that
me parece
multidisciplinary
sumamente
approach
importante
led by us.
y
I
es
think
algo
that's
que
very important.
podemos ir
And it's something that
construyendo
we
con
can
ellos.
keep
Entonces,
building
desde esa
with
perspectiva,
them. So from that
aportarles.
perspective,
Igualmente, pues hemos venido trabajando una
we've
serie
been
de
working
actividades
on a
que tienen que
series
ver
of
con
activities that have
investigación,
to do with
extensión,
research,
en la
outreach,
parte de
in the
del Consejo de Decanos, pues darle
so
continuidad
at the
a eso.
Dean's Council, the
A
idea
veces
is to
hacemos
continue
muchos
with that.
esfuerzos aislados
Sometimes
que
we
nos
make
cuestan
many
mucho, pero
efforts
ese
in
esfuerzo
isolation,
grande y en conjunto
but
nos puede dejar
it's
más,
better
¿verdad? Porque al final de
to
cuentas
make a joint
vivimos en un
effort
mundo
because at the end of the
globalizado
day, we live in a
y
globalized
es
world,
parte de la experiencia que
and
podemos
it's part
transferir
of the
a
experience
nuestra
that we can
comunidad académica como
transfer
tal. Y
to
yo creo
the
que podemos
academic
construir
community.
cosas muy
I think
bonitas
we
en
can
conjunto.
do
La
very
virtualidad,
nice
sin
things
embargo, es
together.
una herramienta fundamental,
Virtuality is
pero
an
pues
essential
también
tool,
por la
but
cercanía que tenemos nos permite
also being
trabajar
close to one another allows
todo
us
lo que es la
to
parte
work
física también, ¿verdad? Tener esas
also
reuniones
in
físicas y
person,
demás,
having
y que
meetings
retomemos
in
con mucha
person.
fuerza este Consejo de Decanos
So
de
the idea
Centroamérica,
is to
ya
revitalize this
articulados
Council
tal
of
vez con
Deans from
más
Central
manos para
America
trabajar
and
y aportar.
perhaps with
Entonces,
more hands to
muchísimas
work.
gracias a don Miguel y a ustedes
So thank
y
you,
esperamos que
Miguel,
sea
and thank you,
muy
all of you.
fructífero este año.
and I hope this year is very fruitful.
Bueno, mi
Thank you.
función es perseguirlos
Okay, my role is to go after you
denodadamente. Yo le pedí acá a la
relentlessly.
colega que ponga
I've
sus datos,
asked
pero
my
también les voy a
colleague
pedir a
here
quienes
to
conozco
give us her
que me
information,
pongan
but
la
I will
secretaría
also
que
ask
aceptaron, nombre y
you,
apellido, universidad,
your
por favor,
full
ya los
name,
datos,
your
¿no? Porque son los
university,
tenemos.
the commission that
Porque
you're
después de
planning
las
to
5 de la
participate
tarde
in,
vamos a hacer
because
un informe al plenario
afterwards at 5 we're going to
sobre lo que
report
hicimos ayer
to
con
the
la
plenary
cumbre, hoy con
about what we did
Consejo
yesterday at
Regional
the
y ahora a
summit,
la tarde a
today
las
with
2
this
con la
regional
cátedra.
council, and at 2
Vamos a
p.m. with the
informarla después
chair.
en un bloque
We're
para
going
informar
to
al
have
plenario a
a
las 5 de la
block
tarde,
to
entonces
inform the
quiero
plenary at 5 p.m. So
mencionarlos, ¿no?
I would like to
Pues
mention
fíjense que
you.
este grupo pequeño
And
es muy
this
representativo.
small
Tenemos
group is
Guatemala,
very
Costa Rica, El Salvador,
representative. We have
Colombia,
Costa Rica, El
Honduras.
Salvador, Colombia,
¿La colega de dónde
Honduras.
nos acompaña?
Where are you from, dear colleague? I'm the Deputy Dean at the School of Social Sciences and Humanities of LEPOL, the Polytechnical School of El Litoral. I'm not a dean, but I'm going to pass the information to my dean. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Ahí tenemos los colegas de Colombia.
And
que nos
our colleagues from
acompañan.
Colombia are
Y
there
atrás,
also with us. And
de
at the
Ecuador.
back, Ecuador,
Gracias por acompañarnos.
thank you for joining us.
Bueno,
All right.
podemos ir cerrando. Si
So
les
we
parece,
can
vamos al almuerzo.
close here.
Y
If
la
you agree.
expectativa es dinamizar esto, que podemos
The idea
trabajar
then
mucho
is to
durante el
make
año, que
this
uno
more
puede hacer en una reunión
dynamic,
como esta
to
es
work a
organizarse
lot
para
during the year. In
trabajar
meetings like this, we can organize
y
ourselves to then
poder
get down
encarar
to work.
esos.
And
Hay asociaciones de decanas y decanos
there
en
are
ciertos países, como en
associations of
Argentina, que
deans
se han
in some
constituido en
countries,
referentes
as in
frente al gobierno
Argentina,
nacional.
that have become
Y
a
eso es muy
reference
valioso tanto para las
vis-a-vis the national
casas de
government. And
estudio
that is very
como
important,
para los
both
propios
for
gobiernos que
the
tienen un solo
educational institutions
interlocutor.
and also for the
Encarar
governments that only
procesos de
have one
unificación curricular,
counterpart
procesos
to
de
discuss
opinar sobre los
curricular
estándares de
development,
acreditación de
to
carreras.
give opinions about the standards
Eso
for
solo se
career
hace
accreditation, and that can
reuniéndose los
only be done
decanos.
by getting
Y acá
together
en Centroamérica
all the
tenemos
deans, and here
expectativas.
in Central
Vamos, una
America we
fotito.
have high
Ya sacamos
expectations.
ayer una
Should we
foto,
take a
estamos todos los
picture?
que
But we took a
estaban.
picture yesterday already.
Pero hoy vas a estar en una foto, pero vos vas a estar en una foto con menos gente que la de
You will
ayer.
be in a picture today with fewer people
Bueno,
than
sí, entonces
yesterday.
nosotros. Bueno, vénganse,
Okay,
hagamos
okay,
esto.
let's come
Primero
here
vamos a
and
hacer una foto del
let's
comité
take a picture.
ejecutivo,
First,
por
a
favor.
picture of the executive
Presidenta,
board. The
vicepresidente, tres
president, vice
secretarios, yo los voy a
president, the three
acompañar, están ahí con nosotros.
secretaries.
Vos todavía no me enviaste, Richard, la foto
You
que vas
still,
sacando. Me
Richard, you
prometés
haven't
que me vas
sent
a
me the
mandar y no me
pictures
mandas.
you're taking. You promised you will,
Entonces,
but I never get
que
them.
alguien nos saque la foto al comité
So if
ejecutivo
somebody can take
aquí.
the picture of the executive board here,